Cool. So we can get started with the workshop. If any of these steps are pending, you can maybe just click a picture of this slide because we'll go to the next slide now. So yeah, hi. I hope everyone is doing okay. I'll talk more about the workshop later, but before even starting with that, I just want to know what all things you do. So how many of you are in college right now? No one. Okay. So how many of you are working for have experience of 2 years, less than 2 years? Good. And how many of you have worked on AI, building AI tools? Good. And yeah, one more thing. How many of you have published an NPM package before? Cool. So for a lot of you, I think this will be the first time we'll be publishing NPM package as well. So we'll talk about that. And how many of you have written code in the Notepad at any point in your life? Yeah, all of us, right? This is how we started. And this is kind of how we started coding, where Notepad was the place where we wrote the code. Even worse, if you did engineering, then you'll be writing on the notebook with pen. But this was the mental model that we followed, where we wrote code in Notepad, and we were finding information from textbooks. Then we started writing code in VS Code, and we were finding information in Google or Stack Overflow. Still the similar mental model, we're finding information from one place and we're writing code in one place. Then ChatGPT came, again, the place where we are finding information changed. We started doing ChatGPT. In last 10 days, how many of you have never opened Stack Overflow even once? A lot of us. This is a natural change. Nobody had to come and teach you that you should use ChatGPT because it's still the same mental model where we're finding the information from one place, we're writing the code in other place. Cursor came in, and we sort of had a ChatGPT's version in the code itself, in our editors itself. So we were still writing code in one place, and we were getting information from the agents or ask mode in VS Code or Cursor. So far, we're still following the same mental model where we're writing code in one place and we're finding info from another place. And nobody had to come and take a workshop on why you should use ChatGPT because it was a natural change for you. But so far, it's just been upgrade of tools where we're just getting new and new tools, a better place where you can find information, a better place where we can write code. But what's next? Like, is this how we are going to move forward in the AI world, or is a workflow going to change? The answer is the workflow is going to change slightly, and it's called agentic coding, where you don't have these two mental models where we're trying to find information from one place and writing code in another, but rather a chat sort of interface where your primary way of writing code is prompts, and you just let AI do the things with the prompts. Agentic coding is what boring people call it, but the cooler name is vibe coding. Vibe coding will go into details. This is an actual term coined by one of the founders of OpenAI. And this is sort of the workshop title, where it's a React vibe coding workshop. We are going to build AI tools, and we'll also talk about how we can use some of these AI tools to build better things and build it in a safer way without dropping database tables. The React in this title is just there for the clickbait. It means nothing. It's just, it's not related to React in a way where you can use the same things for any of the frameworks. It's not even related to front-end in a sense, where you can translate the same knowledge for back-end or any of the other fields. The examples that we'll be using will be in React, so that's the React part, but you can kind of translate that into other frameworks as well. So let's talk about the vibe coding. It's an actual term. And what is the final form of vibe coding? What does it mean to vibe code truly? This is Andrej. He was one of the people working with OpenAI, and he was the one to coin this term, vibe coding. The important part in his definition was that you forget that the code even exists. you don't even look at your code, where you just write the prompts, you let AI do your thing, and you just improve over it through prompts itself. You don't see the code at all. This is an important term. You forget that the code even exists. That's the final form of vibe coding, where your primary way of writing code is just chat. But we've seen this going wrong. Replit database got deleted because they were vibe coding. And there are also security issues with vibe coding, where something works, but it's not secure. So it's very difficult to find issues if you're just vibe coding and letting AI do the things. So it definitely goes wrong if you do it without any guardrails. Let's just see again. So we started by manually writing all of the code, where we were writing in Notepad, and we talked about the final form of vibe coding, which is things going wrong. We had the Stack Overflow phase, we had a ChatGPT phase, we had the cursor phase in between, and the final form going wrong. We sort of want to move in that direction. We want to move in the direction where we write prompts primarily for writing code, but we also don't want to go to the final form yet. So that is something that we'll talk about, and I have some demos, and we'll build things together. There is a talk by Eric, who's also someone who's working at Anthropic, called Vibe Coding in Prod. He goes more into details of how to actually vibe code safely. One example or one analogy that he uses, which I really liked, was compiler analogy. In the initial days of compiler, when the compilers were new, what people were scared of what code compilers generate, because it was still the initial phase for compilers. So what they would do is they would write their code, they would compile it, and then they would go and read the compiled code to see if it's proper or not, to see if it's properly written or not. And that continued for the initial phases of compiler, because people didn't trust compilers enough. But eventually compilers got better and better and better, where to the point where now if you're building something in, let's say, React, you don't write your React code and then npm run build and see your dist output. You just know that it's going to work because you have certain trust in Webpack or Babel, because our overall compilers and transpilers, those things have gotten better. So if we want to wipe code with a good accuracy, if we want to wipe code with safely, what we want to do is we want to improve the accuracy of AI in a way where you can, we'll talk about certain things that we can do for improving the accuracy of AI. But one of the initial things, sort of like a foundation that we know of, is how to write better prompts. It seems very obvious, but it has a lot of tips and tricks that you can do for writing better prompts. And this is something that we'll use across our session. This is not just for prompts, but any way you're talking to AI, whether it's through some AI tools or writing some instructions. This is something, the tips and tricks that you can follow for just talking to AI in general. And the other is giving better context to AI, letting AI understand your code base a bit more, making AI understand your tools a bit more. So yeah, first thing we're going to start with is prompt engineering. This is an actual term. I hated it initially, but it's actually a very helpful thing to know about. So what I want you to do is, one second. I want you to go to this link. Just open this link in your laptops. You don't have to set the repository up yet. We'll go to that part later. But just open this link. I have some tips and tricks for prompts there, so we'll go through those. Even beyond this, do any of you have any of your tips and tricks that you found that if I write my prompt this way, then it just helps AI generate a better code? Anyone can raise their hand and let me know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So having like certain structure and giving it step by step instructions. Yeah, that's correct. Anything else? Hmm. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea as well, where you create a README file first and then you just may write down all the information about the project. Yeah, yeah, correct. So yeah, we'll go through the some of the prompt engineering tips and tricks. I have this repo open here, and I sort of have these prompt engineering tips here. What some of these are just theoretical. We don't have to try them out as such. They're more obvious. For example, is this visible? Yeah. So yeah, some of these are more obvious. One is just being more specific and elaborative, where you just ask AI to build you a component. It's probably going to do a lot messier job than you asking it to building a component using a certain technology or using a certain way. Like asking it to use certain libraries, React Router for navigation or Formic for form validations. It's going to do a lot better job at building that component than a vague instruction. Another thing that actually works with AIs is defining a role for AI. You might have seen this in a lot of AI examples as well, where they have like a role field where you go and define what exactly the role the AI is going to take. For example, you can define something like you are a software engineer who works in XYZ org. That kind of gives AI context on what sort of detailing or what type of in what role it should perform that task. So for example, if you define it as you're a software engineer, it will probably go and focus more on the coding aspects, making sure that the code is working, etc. If you mention that it's a front end, you're a front end React engineer, it will just make sure that it focuses more on the front end React side and getting more context about the React. So defining a role is something that helps as well. Another is giving few shots example, where if you just give example on if I give this prompt, return me this. If I give this prompt, return me this. This as well helps. You can actually try this out in your Cursor or any of your AI tools. So for example, I'll just copy paste this into Cursor and see. So yeah, if you have just installed Cursor, you can press Command I for this new chat um, field. You can type any prompts here and it can respond you with something. What we can do is we can first try a prompt without really the few short examples and see what it returns. Oh, there is a weather alert in Goa. I didn't know that. Let me actually connect to my hotspot once. Okay, sure. So this is kind of the response that we have, where it has just responded in more generic sense, where it gave everything about the weather that it knows of. But let's say we want to find weather in a certain format, then we can go and try the prompt that I've added in the README. You can also try that out, where I have like some few short examples on how to respond to the AI. Yeah. If you see the response now, it's a lot shorter response with only the information that we have mentioned in the examples. Because we have mentioned the examples here that if I ask for weather of Bangalore, just return me this degree Celsius and chances of rain. It has also responded me in a similar sense where it just mentions the temperature and the chances of rain. So few short examples kind of gives it an idea on how to respond to the prompts. Another tip in forms is in prompts is that you don't use negations, where if you ask AI to don't use formic library in between of a lot of other prompts and other instructions, it's probably going to use formic library in some way, because it doesn't do well with the don't language. So what you instead do is you ask it what to use. So you can try to change some of the instructions into more positive language, where instead of saying don't use formic library, you can say use React hooks form library. And it does a lot better job at giving the response. Some of the advanced prompting techniques is one is reason and act, where you mention AI to just think of the steps and figure out the approach first and then start implementing, which is also similar to the things that both of you mentioned in your example, where you sort of give an idea to AI on how to think and how to plan things out and then go and implement. Reason and act is something that you would have seen implemented in the AI models themselves now, where if you give a prompt, it does this thought for 2 seconds thing, which is sort of AI trying or planning things out and then trying to implement. So it's something that's implemented in the models themselves. But if you still want like better accuracy, the reason and act approach is helpful. And this one is the interesting one, which is structured prompting. AI is a lot better at understanding structures, so markdowns or XML. XML is the interesting one. We'll talk about this in details. But markdowns, lists, checkboxes, it's something that AI understands better. So JSX is, XML is something that is very unique to see. I was surprised to see this in the prompt engineering, but this is actually a helpful way of writing prompts, where instead of just mentioning what is the weather in Goa, I can say something like, what is the weather in Goa, and give this XML tags in the prompts, which basically separate out a section of your prompt with different things. And it understands that this particular section is about the output format. So if you give this as a prompt to Cursor, Yeah, you would notice that it responded in exactly the JSON format that I wanted. Uh, Again, this is a small example, so it would have written the JSON format either ways, even if without the XML tags. But especially in the larger examples, these XML tags actually end up helping AI get more context about the different sections in your prompt. This is there's a documentation on this by Anthropic. There is a link in that README, so you can check that out as well, which has like some examples. So yeah, this is a prompt without XML tags, which is like more of a paragraph of generic instructions. But with XML tags, you would see that there is these agreements, so it knows that this is the agreement part. There's a contract, which is like contract part. You can give your input data. You can give instructions, guidelines, findings. These are like XML tags in your prompts, which make AI respond with a better format and respond better in a better way. We'll be writing those prompts in our workshop. So I just wanted to talk about the prompt engineering parts first. There are also other things in prompt engineering. There is a prompt engineering guide on the internet, so you can go through that as well. But these are like sort of the important tips and tricks. So yeah, we talked about prompt engineering. We know how to write better prompts. The other aspect was better context. This is, again, another important part, and this is something that the workshop is about. This is something that we'll be writing code on. AI needs better context of your code base. AI needs better context of how you prefer to write code, and AI needs better context of the third-party tools that you're using or any of the tools that you're using. One thing that AI needs is a general knowledge. This is something that comes from the foundational models, where your Claude or Gemini or GPT, they have a general knowledge and general understanding of what React is or what Formic is, what style components is. It has a general knowledge of the world. Then AI needs to understand the code base context. This is something where Cursor or even VS Code now helps, where Cursor indexes your code base. So it understands what is there in your code base. It understands that this file has authentication, this file has login page, this file has sign up page. If I go to this route, then this file opens up. This is the context that Cursor has. So if you ask Cursor, where is the authentication code written in your code base, Cursor will be able to answer you fairly easily because it has that code base index. Cursor rules is something where you define certain instructions to Cursor, and these instructions get followed, and you can provide a better context of your code base to Cursor. For example, let's say you're writing tests, and Cursor is sort of hallucinating in the AI part, where instead of using proper libraries, it's trying to use another library itself. In Cursor, you can define that my testing library is this, and then it will make sure that it will always use the library that you have defined in the Cursor rules. We'll again talk about Cursor rules, and the workshop includes the Cursor rules part as well. Understanding your coding style. So you might have your own preference in how you prefer to code. So Cursor has these settings called user rules, where you can go and define, this is the way I prefer to write code. And you can define instructions. Again, you can follow the same prompt engineering there as well and write instructions about your coding guidelines. And this is the part that we'll be going into details of, where you need to give context of your design system. You need to give context of your libraries, your internal tools to Cursor, because it's not going to have that knowledge. The foundational models are not going to have that knowledge. So you need a way where you can define the libraries context and third-party context to the Cursor. And this is sort of the workshop part. What we want to do is our goal is to build production grade UIs with just prompts. This is our final goal. This is what we want to achieve by the end of the workshop. Now, there are some foundational things that we need if we want to achieve that goal. Let's say you want to build a production UIs and you go and ask Cursor, build you a dashboard. What are the chances that it will go and build a dashboard that looks like this? Very less, right? Because it has to take too many decisions now. It has to decide what should be the border radius of this button. It has to decide what should be the hover color of the side now. It has to decide if I click this menu, then a menu pop-up opens up. It should have login, logout button. It has to decide a lot of these like smaller badge and search, how to place items. The more decisions you leave on AI, the messier the response is going to be. So your goal is to make AI take less decisions as possible. One way of doing that, especially in context of front-end, is to build components, where you have say, certain components, especially design system in a place, which takes a lot of decisions away from the AI. For example, let's say you have a top nav component, you have a side nav component, you have a table component card, button, links, step group. You already have a set of these components ready. Now, when AI is trying to build a dashboard like this, it doesn't have to go and think about what is the border radius of button or what is the color of the button. It just needs to stitch things together where it takes the button, takes the table, takes the card, and just places the items in a way where it can look like a dashboard. And it's more likely going to generate a lot better looking code here. Which is another point where if you have a design system in a place where you have a lot of components and tokens and foundational UI things ready, even though it's not related to AI as such, it really helps AI generate a lot better output. So if you want to build a production grade UIs with just prompts, kind of way to do that is to give a better context of your design system and your local component library to AI. Context. This is something that we talked about earlier where AI needs context. So we just have to give context of the design system to AI. And once AI has a context of how to use design system, how to integrate components, how to make on-click or how to create modals, it's going to generate a lot better code. Everyone has this repo ready, right? So what you can do now is you can actually do the local setup for this repo. Here you will see the local setup guidelines where you can git clone. And one thing I want you to do is open app and design system in two different cursor windows so that cursor doesn't, when you're using app, it doesn't know about your design system at all. It's not indexed. So just open them in two different cursor windows. I have app here and design system here. Let me know if you're facing any issues with the local setup. Also, if you came in late, just make sure you have prerequisites as well. So just if you have cursor installed, that's good. If it's VS Code, that also works. Although in my workshop, I'll be talking about cursor rules and a lot of cursor specific things. So it helps if you have cursor. If you're done with the setup, you can also just go through the design system folder meanwhile. You don't have to understand it fully. We're not going to talk about design system at all. It's just there. We'll talk about the tools that we build on top of design system. But if you still want some context of what this setup is about, you can go to the design system folder once. I use ShardCN and Tailwind. So those are like, I've just used ShardCN and Tailwind for generating a design system. Is everyone done with the local setup? Okay, this is the fun part. Some of you mentioned that you haven't published NPM library before. What I want you to do is publish this design system directory as an NPM library. I'll tell you the steps and I'll also show you what you can do. What you have to do is go to the design system. Let me just in the packages /rits slash package.json, just open this package.json. Now you would see the name field here. At the start of the workshop, I asked you to create an NPM account. Just take the username of your NPM account and change it here. For example, my username on NPM is Saurabh Dare, so I've mentioned that here. Just change it to whatever your username is. Is anyone here who was facing issue with creating NPM account? Does everyone have NPM accounts? So let's say your username is XYZ. One thing we want to do is just change it to XYZ here. And then open terminal and cd into that directory, RIDS directory. Does anyone want to guess what does RIDS stand for? Yeah. So just cd it here and run npm publish access public. I'll actually show you the slides itself. You might have to npm login if you haven't logged in before. So run npm login first. Who raised that?
We are facing issue while creating account for.
If you're facing too many requests issue on npm while creating npm account, just try it with your hotspot ones. Is anyone who's facing issues? Yeah. You need pnpm install. You can do npm install -g hyphen g pnpm. Try now. Run pnpm install on root. Yeah. Root as in the root of this project. Actually, it's fine if you run it here as well. So one step I missed adding here is run pnpm install before this, so that it installs the library that is needed for creating the build. Can you run pnpm install here? Pnpm install.
That's all.
Yeah. You'll have to change the name in package.js. Oh, it's not saved. Yeah, it should work now.
Actually, run npmi and then install pnpm after this.
Anyone else who's facing issues? Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else who's facing issues? Yeah, is everyone done with these steps? Cool. So if everyone is done, we can move forward. One thing that was different was you had to run pnpm install in between. That will just install the dependencies. Now, once you have this installed, what we have is a published npm package. So if you go to your username, so in my case it's Saurabh Avre and RIDS, you can just use your username. And if you just go to this link, you will see your version of npm package published. So this is sort of a way of publishing npm packages. And once you have your npm package published, just remember one thing. In the workshop, any place where you would see my username, just change it with your username, and things should work fine. There's also some README that we have defined, so how to use the design system and everything. Now, in the design system directory, what you can also do is you can run the design system locally. So that'll just help you see what all components we have in design system. So if you run pnpm dev in your RITs directory, you will see a local dev server running, which just opens the design system components that we have in the design system. So you can run pnpm dev in the RIDS directory. Does everyone have this running? Cool. So we can move to trying out next parts. The next part that we want to try out is cursor rules. This is like, if there's one thing that I would want you to take from this workshop, is cursor rules. The kind of impact that cursor rules have on AI's accuracy and the way it generates code for your code base. I don't think so any other tool will have. So just make sure that you write as many cursor rules as possible when you go and work on your own repos. It's called cursor rules for cursor. If you're using VS Code, it's called instructions, I think. But the concept is similar, where you define some markdown file and define like some context for your code base there. What we'll do is we'll try writing cursor rules now for our repo. So go to your app directory, the app window that you opened on cursor. And create a directory called, one second. A directory called .cursor, and inside that you can create a folder called rules. This is sort of where cursor will look for the cursor rules in your repo. Now instead this, what I'll do is I'll just create something like a get weather cursor rule. I'll just write out some information on how I want the weather to be returned. I'll probably copy paste the same thing that we had seen in the repo. So basically the thing that cursor rules solve is you don't have to write, for example, here if you see, we have to write a very verbose prompts every time. You have to give the context of how the output should be every single time you run a prompt. We don't want to do that. We want simpler prompts to return better things. So you can just define this prompt in one go in cursor rule, so that every time you ask what is the weather, the cursor rule will go and see the cursor rules and return you in the format that we're expecting. Yeah. So inside the cursor rules, I have this get weather.mdc. MDC is the extension. It's basically Markdown, but for cursor. And you would probably see this UI where it asks you whether it wants to apply intelligently, always apply. So always apply is when cursor rule will always be in the context of any prompt that you make. Apply intelligently is what would work for you in most scenarios where cursor will decide whether that cursor rule is needed or not depending on the description that you give here. So if you mention that this is a rule for showing the weather to user, cursor will understand that there's a cursor rule for showing the weather, and it will go and read that cursor rule every time we ask the weather. Is everyone done with this file, creating this file? Okay, so now what we can do is we can ask this same question, but without really giving it a context on what the output format is. If you notice, it read the getweather.mdc file. That's because it understood that from this prompt, there's a cursor rule file that it needs to read and keep in the context while responding. And it responded with the format that we're expecting. So we don't have to tell it every time on how the format should be. This is obviously a small example just to get you used to what cursor rules are, but you can do cooler things with it. For example, let's say you have a cursor rule called write unit test. That write unit test cursor rule can have things like what are the libraries that you use for unit test, how should your unit test be run. For example, in our repo, the repo that I work on at work, what cursor used to mess up often was every time it would write a unit test, it would try to run the entire test suite just to see if that cursor test is correct or not. So in our cursor rules in the repo, what I've mentioned is this is how you run a unit test for particular component. So unit test for this component. So now every time you write a test, the cursor writes a test, it runs the test just for that component. So cursor rules are basically something that you would write every time you see AI hallucinate. So if AI is hallucinating in a particular context, just go and write a cursor rule for that and mention that this is how you should do it instead. Cool. So this is roughly what we want to build. Where you have again, I'll go and explain what these terms are, what is MCP, what is AI agents. But this is roughly what we want to build now. We sort of have the context of what prompt engineering is. We know what cursor rules are, so we'll use those and build this architecture. You can ignore everything else. The first part is getting the knowledge base. Knowledge base for AI is something like a documentation for AI. Like right now we have a design system, but we don't have any way to know how to use that design system. We don't have any documentation for that design system. So we need a knowledge base for that initially. So what we'll do is we'll be creating a knowledge base first. So once we have the knowledge base, we can use different AI tools to just refer to that knowledge base and get the information about our design system. Now in the links and references section, you would see this live gist link. I would want everyone to just open that. You would see this gist. It's in the readme's last, like live gist thing. So now what we can do is I have this prompt. This is sort of a cursor rule written for creating a knowledge base. So we want a knowledge base in a certain format, right? One way of doing that is that I go and create a knowledge base directory and I go and creating button.md file with this is how to use button, this is the TypeScript file, this is the usage, etc., etc. I can do that with the same and go and writing knowledge base manually. But this is also one of the place where I prefer writing cursor rule, where if I just want to get a repetitive task done, I can just write a cursor rule for that and get the task done. So what you can do now is just copy this entire content. And in your design system window, go to the design system window. in the rules, you would already see this add component rule. Just add another component called create AI knowledge base .mdc. Not this. And copy paste that content in that MDC file. Just make sure you create it in the design system window. By the way, you would also notice some of the prompt engineering things that we talked about. Here I mentioned this instructions XML. Then there's knowledge base format XML. Component name is how it gets to know where to put the component name of that particular component. And then I have like format of how the documentation should be. Let me know when everyone is done. Is everyone done? Okay. Cool. So now our cursor understands how to create a knowledge base, how to create a documentation for the AI. What we can do now is just go and ask cursor. There are some components here, so I'll just go and ask cursor to create knowledge base for button. Yeah, I'm just asking AI to create a knowledge base for button component. We'll see how it does. By the way, in general, if you're using cursor, keep it on auto. It usually gives a good balance of which AI model to use. Compared to if you use like a premium model, it will try to overthink the situation and do too many things. So yeah, I don't have to give any other context. I'm just asking it to create a knowledge base for button component. It will go and read the cursor rule file and create a knowledge base. Here it read the cursor rule file. It will generate this knowledge base directory with button.md and some TypeScript examples and usage examples. Just check one thing here. Yeah, I think the imports might be wrong. I haven't mentioned it in the instructions, but the imports can be something like your username and package name. Just change the imports once. Yeah. So yeah, I'll actually talk about that part in a bit. Yeah. So what we'll do first is we'll just create design system and all the tooling, and then we'll go to app part and try to run all this tooling and design system as well. Is everyone able to generate this file? Okay. Cool. So what we can do is, actually, I'll just add an instruction that use the correct import path so that it will use the import path correctly for other components. You can also put this instruction at the end in your instruction so that next components it generates, it will use the right imports. Cool. We can generate similar knowledge base for the other components now. I'll just keep this. What I want you to do is generate knowledge base for button, input, and card. These three components should be enough. We won't go and generate it for all components, but these three components should be enough to build like a very basic UI for us at the end. You can ask it to generate for all at the same time as well. Just check if it has generated correctly. Yeah, I'm just asking it to generate knowledge base for input and card at the same time. Should be fine. You would notice that it used the right imports now because we added that instruction at the end to make sure that it imports from the right place. Change this with your username in the instructions. If anyone is facing issues generating this knowledge base, just raise your hand. Welcome. So yeah, we can move forward. So we have this knowledge base, which acts like a documentation for AI, for the other AI tools. Now, going back to the slides. Yeah, we're done with the knowledge base part. We have a knowledge base. So what we want to do is create an MCP server. I'll talk about what MCP server is and what it does. So yeah, what are MCP servers? This is a language that you write for AI. You write a prompt, you write English language. But what our code understands is functions. It understands how to run a function, what parameter to take, what to return. There's a difference in language here where you're using English and a verbal language while you're defining something in the AI. But what you want to do is execute a code, execute a function at the end to do things. MCP is a standard way of creating these functions. It's a standard way of creating something that we call as tools. So add, for example, is a tool here. This is kind of how it works, where let's say you have a math MCP server, an MCP server that does math operations. Now you would have tools like add, subtract, multiply, divide. These tools are defined in a standard way so that any MCP client, whether it's Claude, Cursor, or any MCP client that are there in the market, they can they can call the same MCP server and get the response. So if you have a math MCP server that exposes these tools and functions, you can in Claude also you can put something like add these two numbers and it will go and make call to the add tool and return the response. So these are the sort of tools that you expose for AI to do operations. What we'll do is we'll sort of create an MCP server now. Is everyone done with the knowledge base part? Yeah, I've just accepted these changes. Now you can close this RIDS directory. We are going to create a new package now for the MCP server of this design system. Sure. So now you can go and create a directory called rids-mcp. And inside this, just create an index.js file. I'll just clear out everything. So we don't want to look into other things now. We are going to build an MCP server. So we'll just add code to this RIDS MCP itself. Another thing that you can do is go to cd into this MCP server package. And run npm init-y. What it does is just creates the package.json file so that it will help us installing the dependencies and everything else. So what I'll do is now we can go to the documentation of MCP servers. You can Google search build MCP server. And this first link will be this modelcontextprotocol.io's website, which is a documentation on how to build MCP server. Just select node here so that it gives us the response of how to do it in the JavaScript. We don't have to read through this. What we want is like a basic code for now. Yeah, just come to this code, building your server, and there is like a basic MCP server code. Copy paste all of this. We'll remove some of these things from here into your index.js file. And you can remove these two lines. What we'll do is we'll actually create that math MCP server first, and then we'll translate that into design systems MCP server. So I'll remove these lines. We also don't need this capabilities object. You can rename this if you want. And we also want to install these packages. We haven't installed these packages yet. Just run this command. We're installing model context protocol /SDK and Zod @3. @3 because we want to install the particular version of Zod, the version 3. The version 4 has like some dependency issues with the MCP. So the documentation also mentions the npm install command here. So yeah, just run this pnpm install. Just make sure that you're running installations through pnpm now because it's a pnpm repository. Is everyone done till here? So what we have here is basic MCP server code. It's just creating a server right now. The server is not really exposing any tools. So we'll create tools that it exposes. You can just add these 3 lines. Transport equals stdio server transport. And make sure you put console.error instead of console.log because the stdio that Node uses is used by MCP for its own communication. So in their website as well, you would see that this suggests actually logging through console.error instead of console.log. Yeah, just add these 3 lines. So what I'll do is I'll just copy paste this into the gist so you can copy paste the code directly from there. The gist that we have open, I'll just put it here so that you can copy paste it from there. Yeah, you would see this in the gist, so you can copy paste the code here. We'll go through the code. Is everyone done till this part? Cool. So we have code for the MCP server. What we'll do is we'll just run this MCP server in our cursor now. For that, what you can do is go and copy the path of this index.js file. And then go to cursor settings. You will see tools and MCP in your cursor settings, so you can add MCP servers from there. What I've done is I've just added a JSON that says the name of the MCP server. This can be anything. Command. What we want to do is we are running it locally. So we just want to take node and run that index.js file that we have created. Once you're done with this JSON, what you'll see is a tool here running. Are people able to see this? I had missed adding this one parameter in the earlier version, which is like a Zod schema, which gives the parameters context to the cursor. So you can just add these 3 lines after your second parameter in the server.tool call. One second. This. You can also add some descriptions if you want. That just describes the tool. You can restart the MCP server. It should show you the tool now. So you would see that there's a tool and there's a parameters that it mentions that it takes 2 parameters. So now if I go to my cursor and ask it to add numbers, you would see that it made a tool call to add tool, and it just added the numbers and returned the numbers. So this is sort of your way of giving the context of your libraries, where what I can do here is I can also just read the knowledge base files that I have and return them from here and ask something like how to use a button. And because that it has the knowledge base of the buttons markdown, it can just respond with how to actually use the button and tell you how to use and integrate that button component in your file. What we can do now is, because we'll run out of time, we can just get checkout to some of the branches that we have, and we'll go through the code and see how we can implement this for the design system. So you can git checkout to MCP branch in your project. You can still save your changes into some other branch so that you have them handy later. Yeah, I've just checked out to the MCP branch now. The difference that you'll see here is that the knowledge base, I've just copy pasted it from RIDS directory to the MCP directory so that we have knowledge base that we can refer to in the MCP package. And in the index.js, similar to the tools that we had for add, I just added a tool called getDocs. What this tool does is gets the documentation of the list of components that you've given to it. So I've taken parameter as component names, which is the comma separated value of the component names. And what I do here is I just read this markdown files with read file and return the documentation of that particular component. And then you can go and restart the MCP server that you've added. You will see this get docs call here. Is everyone able to see this tool call? Yeah. Hmm. It should work because it's still AI. For example, the response that we give from the MCP tool, it's not exactly the response that MCP also returns. That response still goes to the cursor, and cursor figures out how to respond there. Is Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's like a description for AI. So AI understands that add and sum are same things. So yeah, we have a MCP server that can return documentation now. What I can do is I can ask it how to use. How to use button component of RIDS. It understands that there is an MCP server and there's a tool call that it can make. So yeah, it made this tool call called getDocs, return the documentation. And it responded with how to use the button component. And this is not exactly the markdown file as well. So the response that we returned from the markdown file went to cursor, and cursor figured out that this is how I should respond to this particular question. I can also ask how to place button and input side by side. It already has the buttons documentation, so it didn't make that call again. It just made call to the input. It returned the inputs documentation. And it responded by saying that this is how you can use how to place the input component and button component side by side. So AI kind of has its own context as well on how to respond to some of these queries, and it responds by taking the documentation that we have created for it. Cool. So we have MCP here. Another thing that we can do is problem with MCPs is that it's just tool calls. If let's say I want to create a documentation website which has a chat button, and when I press the chat button, I can ask in that chat button on how to use these components or how to integrate these components. We can't really do that right now because these are just tool calls. If I ignore the cursor part, the MCP is just tool calls. So I don't have any OpenAI running here, or I don't have any Gemini that is running here and making sure that this is the tool call to make. This is something that cursor is doing. But if I want to do it outside of the cursor's context, what we have to do is sort of create AI agents. And this is sort of the final part here, where once you have an MCP server, you sort of need an AI agent that can make calls to the MCP server, so that if I want to do these operations outside of cursor, I can do that as well through the AI agent. We already have a cursor agent that is running, which is making the tool calls right now. I'll just briefly explain what AI agents are. The difference here between MCP and AI agents are sort of model plus tool calls. So you would have OpenAI or Gemini model that is running in your agent, and you also have some functions and tool calls that it knows how to make. So let's say, again, if you want to make a weather AI agent and you have tools like get temperature, get rain chances, get humidity, and you have model like OpenAI or Gemini or any of the thing, and you give a prompt, you ask a prompt like, what is the temperature in Mumbai? That prompt goes to the AI agent, and the OpenAI will figure out here which tool call to make. So from OpenAI, it can figure out that I want to make a tool call to get temperature or get rain chances or get humidity. In this case, from the prompt, it figured out it wants to make a tool call to get temperature. Here, model can be anything. It can be Gemini, Claude, custom model that you build. And tool calls can be anything as well. It can be MCP tools that we build. That it can be generic functions that you have running in the server. It can be OpenAI tools, or it can be LangChain tools, any of the SDKs that support creating tools. In our case, it will be MCP tools. Again, what we can do is we can sort of git check out to the AI agent part as well, and we can just go through the code instead of writing it one by one. Yeah, I'll just explain this code once, but before that, we also need to set up a .env file with access to the OpenAI keys or Gemini. What I'm going to do is I'll use Gemini because Gemini gives like a free access to some of the API tool calls. So Gemini is a lot easier to set up and implement. So yeah, on Gemini, you will see this API keys section where you can create API keys. It's fine if you don't follow along. What I'll do is I'll just show you what the output will look like in this case. So I'll just go and create like a .env file. Yeah, I'm going to expose my API key, but I'll probably remove it. Okay, so now we'll just go through the code and I'll explain what exactly how exactly I'm building the AI agents. In your gist that I shared, you would probably see links to different packages. Sorry, not here. In the README of the repository that we have. You will see these links here, which are, first link is just generating Google AI Studio API key. LangChain agents link is something which, LangChain is the library that we use for creating AI agents. You can go to this documentation and here you will see there is this very simple agent that they've created with LangChain, which is like they take create agent from the LangChain. And as I mentioned, agent is just model plus tools. So it's defining model here and tools here. And this is sort of what creates the AI agent through LangChain. And in this case, they're using the tools from LangChain itself, but this can be MCP tools as well. So you would see another library in the README, which mentions MCP adapters, which is basically a way of using MCP as tools instead of creating a different tools in the LangChain. So here you will see that you just add the configuration of MCP that you create, and it runs that MCP tools instead of creating a separate tools. Now let's go back to the code here. Yeah, here you see that first thing that we're doing is we're using this MCP adapter where we're defining our MCP. We're running the local MCP right now, so node and the path that we took, similar to the configuration that we wrote in the cursor tools, cursor MCP tools. We are creating an AI agent here. This is like a Gemini's way of creating a model. And then we're passing that model and tools to the agent. So now, when I ran the node.index.js, what it did was it asked this question on how to use a button component in RITS, and it responded with the content, the documentation content, and how to actually use without using cursor here. In this case, we are not using cursor agent, but this sort of becomes an API call instead of a cursor agent making that call. So let's say you create some API, an Express server that is something like localhost 3000 / AI agent, and you take prompt as a parameter here. What you can do is, if you're building a front end, you can just make an API call to this particular endpoint and pass your prompt here, and it can respond you with the response without having to use the cursor agents themselves. So yeah, if you want to try it out, you can also go to git checkout to AI agent and just add this env, and it should work fine. I want to briefly talk about how all of it comes together and how it actually helps build the final application. So we have sort of similar setup in our for our design system in Razorpay as well, where we have MCP tools that respond with the documentation and different types of usage, how to scaffold a project, etc. And we also have AI agents for doing Figma to code, where you can pass a Figma link and it responds with the code. And when it comes together, it sort of looks like this, where I have a Blade MCP. That Blade is the design system's name in our org. I can go and install that. So we have a Hybrid tool which just responds with how to use the MCP. Let's say I ask it to build a dashboard, something that we talked about earlier, where if you're trying to build a dashboard, it's probably not going to do a good job. But if you give it a context of design system and some components, then it overall builds a lot good looking dashboards. So here I have this create new Blade project tool call, which scaffolds a project for you, which is again another tool call in the MCP. This is a similar thing that we built, where it's a MCP tool, which takes the component names as params and just responds to the documentation of those components. And then Cursor understands those components through that documentation and implements code using your design system. This is the example of Figma to code. Figma to code is an AI agent for us that runs at a different place, where I can go and just show. What I'm doing is I'm just copying the link of this Figma node, and I'm going and pasting that in my cursor chat. It's a Figma link, and this MCP tool call that is getting called, get Figma to code, that MCP tool call is making a call to the AI agent that we have. Yeah. So we basically just take that URL, we make Figma's API call. Figma is a SDK for getting the information of a particular node. So we make that API call, get the Figma node information, take that Figma node information and pass that to AI and ask it to generate an equivalent code using our design system. We also have to put like some transformers and a lot of other things in between, but that is like the overall flow. So in this case, it returned with the code of that Figma. So yeah, we have a very similar looking code that was there on Figma node. So this was the Figma, and this is the code that it generated. Even now, if you see, the dashboard is like fairly good looking dashboard because we have all these components ready and AI is just trying to stitch things together. Then I'm just trying to add headings. So if I'm trying to click button, it's not doing anything. So let's say I want to make this button work and actually create a flow that adds a particular payment option. What I can do is I can give it a prompt saying, on click of this particular button, take people through the steps of adding a website. One change you would see here is it makes a call to get Blade pattern docs. we have patterns defined for creating a step form. So it's like a layer above the components. So it's not just components, but also how components come together to create a step form. So we have that layer as well, and it makes calls to that particular pattern. And yeah, this is sort of what it generated, where on clicking of it, this is the pattern that we follow across, where you have a stepper on side and some inputs, validations. It was able to figure out all these things because it's defined in the pattern, and AI is not trying to go and figure it out on its own. So yeah, this is sort of the workflow that we have in org now, where we have MCPs to give the context of the design system, and we have just different tool calls that perform particular actions, like Figma to code or creating a new project. These are like different tools for us. And yeah, I think that is it from my side. You can my social links are on this, but apart from this as well, what I'll do is in this workshop link that we have, I'll just in the README put some of the steps that we can follow, and you can go home and follow those steps to get like similar, build AI agents on your own or build MCP tools in your own. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
React India. React. React India. React India. React. React. React India. React. React India. React. React India. React. React India. React India. React. React. React India. React, React. React, React India. React, React. React,
Hello everyone, thank you for joining our workshop. So I am Piyush Sareen along with my fellow colleague Shambhavi Siwan. We both work as front-end leads at Brevo. So Brevo, it's a AI-enabled email marketing cum CRM platform for your business. So over there we do very interesting stuffs in front-end like design systems, MCP, micro front-end container. And if any one of you are interested to know more about it, so like you can join us and connect with us afterwards. Okay. So agenda of our today's workshop is accessibility. So like if I like accessibility is one of the most overlooked topic. Why overlooked? You'd soon be knowing it. So first thing, if I want, I want to ask you I want to ask every one of you, like, what do you think? If I say disabilities, what kind of disabilities can you all think of? Color blindness. Yes, color blindness is there. Visual impairment. Yes. Any more? Hearing impairment. Correct. Yeah. ADHD. So. Yes, it is. So I think like there are more than 21 types of disabilities. They can be a cognitive disabilities, mental disabilities, physical disabilities. Like there are many, right? And like most of us don't know that as well. So if I say how many of you have actually tried navigating the websites using the screen readers and keyboard navigations? Like, yes, many of you, like you all are front-end developers. Great. So how many of you have find it easy to navigate it using the keyboard? Any website you have navigated? Like I see like almost none, right? Very few, very few. Why? Do you know why?
I think one of the reasons is that we moved out of Linux and system-based, where we were highly tied to the keyboard in our workflow. Now we have moved to fancy MacBooks where we have these cool mouse and all those things. So I think, but still, people who are more hardcore on the keyboard stuff,
Yeah.
Would prefer to have all the workflow without touching a mouse or without even navigating away.
Great. Great. So yeah, like that can be one of the reason. And the core reason I would say is like usually people don't think of targeting accessibility right from the start of development. They're like their things are available, their things are working with mouse, and they're like done. Like our code is working, that's fine. So basically, in today's workshop, we'll try to like inculcate an architecture into you so that you think in a way that whenever you start a development, you think about accessibility right from the start. Okay. So, like, before starting about this, like, I want to ask, can you think of like how many people are there who would be suffering from this issue where they are not able to use this keyboard navigation and all? Basically, I want to know, basically, I want to know, like, what is the percentage of people you think are specially able around the world? Any guesses?
30%, specifically tier 1 banks like Citi and
30? Yeah, and what about if I say about world? Any idea? Any guess? Random guess? 4, 5, 10, 13, 20, 50? Anyone?
60.
60? 60 is way much higher. So, like as per the data we have, it's like around 13%, 12 to 13%. 12 to 13 means every 1 in 8 person has some kind of disabilities. So 1 in 8, like if we have a population of 8 billion, around 1 billion people are like specially able. So like these much are the people who suffer if we don't target the accessibility. We are doing some injustice to them, like since we are not focusing on this part. So that's why we said it's more like kind of underrated topic, and we should take some attention about it. Okay, so this would be an agenda of our workshop today. So over here, as I said, we'll guide you about an architecture way, how you can include accessibility right from the start in your development. So we have created some small exercises, like very small, so that you also don't get bored and you are linked to each and every exercise. And you can learn the things we want you to add them during your development cycle, right? So be with us for the next 1 hour 15 minutes. Okay, so I think it's not working. Yeah, okay. So I think most of you have already cloned this repo. And if somebody, yeah, great. If somebody still wants to, you can, we'll give you 1 more minute for that. Okay, I'm audible to everyone? Yeah, great. Great, okay. So I think you all have already cloned the repo. Should we start with the exercise? Okay, before starting with the exercise, let us just start the solution first. So this would be a solution for the next 1 hour, where we have like created small exercises. Yes. Okay. So this over here we have created small exercises for you all. Like we will explain you each and every exercise, and we'll request you all also to like code along with it. Okay. So in this exercise, like we also have some best practices page where we have written like some useful links and practices which can be followed for accessibility, along with some screen readers commands if you need to inspect anything using screen readers. Okay. So I'll go to the home page back. So our exercise would be lying around this ecom page. I'll be back on this page soon. Before starting, I would also like to explain you the repo structure. So our repo basically it contains it's a Vite-based app which has its own it's a Vite-based React app. It has the similar structure of a React app, which having its own pages, components, and routing. But we'll not go into that. For simplifying this to you all, we have created small exercises, and in these small exercises, all the small exercises are the part of this playground, where this playground has labeled exercises, and each label exercises, if I open this exercises, it's exercise number 1, card wrapper, right? So this card wrapper code, where you have to do the code, is the card wrapper JSX file, the main JSX file. Is it clear to everyone till now? Okay, I'll zoom it up. Let me just try if I can. Is it fine? Okay. So as I said, the card wrapper would be having the complete code where you would be coding. In the each step, we have written some to-do steps and also the reference code as well, so that you can follow us along. If still in case you're not able to follow, right? We have created some small step of each exercise, and each step is also there as a solved part. So in case you missed anything, you can just refer that step as well. Okay. So once this step is completed, if still you are not able to follow it, you can refer the solved solution as well. Okay. Is it clear? This is the main part. Like you would lose the track if you don't know this. How many of you are clear with this? Are you all clear? Okay, great. So, okay. So this was our solution part. Now let's start. Before starting with the exercise, let me explain what our solution is resolving around. Okay. So this is an ecom page. I hope you can see this all. So we have created a small ecom page, and in this ecom page, we'll try to place an order. We want to place an obstacle detector, right? Let's try placing an obstacle detector. We'll add an item to the card. The card item is added. We'll go and we'll just check out. Okay. So our order is placed, and we'll not get the order. It's just a workshop, right? So, but this order, this took hardly seconds, right? It was fast. But what if I try it with keyboard navigation? You can also try it, and I'll also try it. Let's try to place an order with keyboard navigation, and let's see who is able to complete it first, right? So I'm trying to navigate. I go to the same product. Now my focus is out of the trap. So I'll just add an element. I've added a cart element. So finally I'm able to add the element. Are you able to? No? It's tough, right? Yes, great. So let's go to the cart again. Oh, sorry, I don't have to use mouse. Let's try to place, I'm finally at the cart, right? Let's try to check it out. And finally in the main modal where I am going to check it out, right? So at this place, now clear to cart, and let's clear to checkout. Oops, my focus is out again, right? So it was frustrating. I'm not able to place the order, right? Yeah, so can you think of there are millions of people facing this issue, right? So today we'll try to correct this. So we'll not correct the complete page. We don't have that much time. We have extracted out some reusable elements by which we can tell you the approach, and you can work along in the same manner and try to make the page accessible, your pages accessible. So we'll start with the first exercise, practice 1 exercise. So all of you, I request all of you to first go to this page and then see the screen. So what about others? Are you able to follow me? Okay, great. So now this card wrapper, it's a simple card wrapper. So there are multiple ways of using card. We have just used a list element and a card within it. So in this card, if you can see, if I click on add to card, there can be a modal, but for now we have just added the alert, and it's clickable, right? Okay. So if I try to do the same thing with keyboard nav, it will not work. And if I even try to do it with screen reader, I'll just turn off the screen reader.
Muting.
So I'm not able to navigate on this page, right? Let me just turn off the screen reader. Yes. So, so now we'll think if we were designing this card component from starting, what all basic rules which we could have taken care of, and the component had become should have become bit accessible. Okay. So before starting it, let's go to the code, and I'll explain you the card wrapper first. We just clear the console and get. Okay. So we are at this card wrapper page, card wrapper .jsx. In this JSX, we have a wrapper. This wrapper is wrapping out and creating a product from a product list. This product list basically has like a title, a description, a price, and an image. So similarly, we have like two products in this list, and we are just mapping these product lists in a UL element. Okay, is it clear? Okay, so this mapper is rendering a card component which has its own prop. Let's go to the card part. So this card component is like kind of a container for just this demo workshop. We have used article as a container, and this article would be having images, title, description, price, and on-click events, right? Is it clear to everyone? Okay. So let us start with the first step. I'll just show you the differences in the git diff. You can try and copy or you can uncomment and code along. Okay. So over here, if you can see this card wrapper structure, the first thing which we could have done is we could have used semantic elements. So semantic elements makes things accessible by on its own, right? So if I just try to understand this card component, in this card component we have used div directly, okay? Div for the click, and it is completely against accessibility rule. Only all the clickable elements can either be div or a link. We should not use div. So let's try to replace this clickable element with a button first. So at line number 56, let's try to replace this div with a button. I'll request you all also. You can also do the same. Okay. And secondly, we will be removing area label. When we use semantic elements, we try to use the labels and the text, the defaults label and the text, until and unless it's very important, then only we should use area label in such case. So we have removed area label as well. Now, the second thing which we could have done to make it semantic is the heading tag. It's an article tag, right? The article have its own context. So we could have used a heading tag instead of div for the heading part over here. So at line number 43, if you can see, we should replace the h2, like the div element with the h2 element. Okay, so we have done these changes. Let's see what difference it makes. On the screen reader, at least now my focus is coming. You can see at the card component, which was not coming previously. Just by using semantic elements, at least the things are tabbable now. See what difference it makes, right? So if I run the screen reader now, there are still issues. We'll try to fix it. So I have just muted the screen reader, but the screen reader at this point is announcing add to cart. That's it, right? Add to cart does not signifies anything, right? Okay, so let's try to fix these two issues. One, when I'm trying to highlight this, proper highlighting is not taking place. And second, the screen reader is not announcing proper elements. Okay. We are working on it. Are you able to navigate by tab on this? Have you replaced the button? Maybe you have you can copy the step number 1 into that card wrapper. Then try it. Are you on the card wrapper.j6? Can you check the solved one? Is it working for you? The solved part with tabbing. Solved one is working. So maybe I think you have missed something. Step 1. No, classes and all. Only tabbing should be displayed. That's it. Highlighting is not there. Let me check once. Let's complete the complete step and we'll check then. Okay. Okay. Let's be on the Let's try to do the second step. I'll just turn off the screen reader. So the second step, as we said, proper highlighting is not working, right? We don't know like which element is getting highlighted. So for that, we should why highlighting is not working. If I go to the code in the step 2, you can see to avoid highlighting things during the mouse, we have used a class called outline none, right? But it is also impacting the keyboard. To avoid this thing, we could have used the focus visible class directly. Focus visible only impact the keyboard section. Okay, so for that, if I try to this, I just try to copy this. You can copy these classes to this button. This will at least highlight the button, but we want card also to be highlighted. So for the highlighting the card, we can use the focus within class. Focus within will highlight the card once the internal button is highlighting. So at line number 32, you have to add some focus styles for the line for this card article as well. So I'll do it. You can also copy me or try to code yourself. So let me go to the article step 1. From line number 2, you can copy these classes. And also for the button, let's copy these classes. So let's see if my highlighting is working. For me, it's working. What about others? Is it highlighting? Great. For you, yeah, nice. Great. What about you? Yeah, okay, it's highlighting. Okay, great. So still, as I said, it's highlighting, but still it's not associating things. We don't know what this add button will be doing. So let's do the last part of area label associations. So we'll go to the step 3. Again, I'll show you the difference, what changes we are making. So what we are trying to do over here is, our elements like title has an ID and description and price also has an ID. Okay. If we somehow inform the screen reader that the article you are highlighting is linked with this heading and description, it will able to detect what are we doing and it will read things, right? So for that, let's add the area label over here. We have added area labeled ID for the title part, linking it to the title, and area described by with description as well as price. Why price? Yeah, great. So at least you know like what are you adding, what is the amount. Like you have to think in this manner when you are designing a component. Like how, like what all information you want to the user who is differently abled. Okay. So I'll request you all to like just uncomment this line number 32 and 33. It's 33 and 34. So if I do it, let's see what difference it makes. I've opened the screen reader, and you see it is now on tabbing, telling me the complete information about this content, right? So now at least we can say this is accessible, right? So do you think it's accessible now? This component? Arrow? Arrow would be the wrapper, like the wrapper part, but I'm just talking about the card part. Do you think this card is accessible? If I press it, it's there. It's not like it's not visually available. Yeah, the colors can be improved, but like at least it's working with tabbing. There is one more major issue I am expecting if anyone of you would be knowing it. I click on this, enter, it adds. Okay, okay, I'll tell you. See, yeah. Price, yeah, we can add, yes, we can add the like information, more clear information about price, like it should narrate the price properly, right? Yes. Like these are some small issues, but there is one major issue which I want to point out. If you can see, this card is having animations, right? So, so the thing over here is, the card, as I said, accessibility is not about visual accessibilities, right? There are many other such cases. So these animations is something like with some kind of disabilities which don't like these animations. Like a person with dyslexia would not be liking it, and there are many other disorders, right? So whenever we apply animations to any of the element, we should also think of a way that we should know how we can remove this animation for these kind of disabilities as well. So how can we do it? Anyone? Any idea? Yes, system settings, you're going in the right direction. So how can we control it with system settings? Yeah, like every system has a preferred animation option available. You can enable and disable that animation using that option. But to making this work, like you have to code something, right? It will not work by on its own. So let's try to fix that. The fourth step. So we are at fourth step now. I'll just close everything so that you're not confused. Okay. So to control this thing, we'll add a class called reduce motion. What this class is doing, let me just first add it and show you the change, then I'll explain. Okay. So I'll try to add a class called reduce motion, and after reduce motion, if I go back to this page, the animation is working, right? So let's try to go to settings. In the system settings, let's go to, just a second. Yeah, the system settings, let's go to preferred reduce animation. Reduce motions. So we are trying to reduce the motions when I enable this thing. Now if I try to hover on this, the animations are not working, right? So if a person has enabled this feature, he can stop all animations. So how many of you want to know how we are doing this? One guy show some interest. Okay. This is working. So you want to know how it's working? Yeah, sure. Great. So let me just explain you. So what we have done in this step is, we have added a class called reduce motion, right? So let's try to understand what this class do. We'll go to the CSS part. This reduce motion is using a media query called preferred reduce motion, right? It's a kind of media query which works only when that particular setting is enabled. And in this preferred reduce motion, basically we have removed all the animations which we have applied on that article part. So once that media query is enabled, the animation will not be working. Okay. So majorly now I can say like this card is accessible. Okay.
Is this working on templating property just for the latest based browser, or will it also work on Firefox?
This property is for this is for the the system property. So all of the system would be having this property. It's not new one. Yeah, yeah. Everyone would be having this. Okay. So I think we have almost made a component accessible now. But this was just a simple component, right? What if I have like multiple structures or multiple components? Like one of the question was there, like if we want to use the keyboard navigation and all, how will we control it? Like we have to like code very intensively, right? So for that, I would like to invite Shambhavi. She will be explaining you how you can like handle this in a reusable way. So Shambhavi, it's up to you. Okay.
Hello. Should I use this? Start this entire. Start mirroring, right? Okay. Like this. Fine, right? All right. So far, have you all been enjoying this workshop? And are you all with us? Okay. So now we enter the second section of this workshop, which I have titled as Building Blocks and Not Band-Aids. So I'm not going to tell you what this title exactly means. We'll jump in straight, and then when we summarize the section, I'll let y'all understand or figure out what this title exactly meant. All right? So we just made a card accessible, right? Following the basic accessibility rules and using semantic HTML elements. So how did that feel? Honestly, tell me. Okay, that's nice to know. But you did this only for 1 or 2 cards, isn't it? What if you had 10 cards or 100 cards where you need to display it in rows and columns in a grid view? Do you think what we did so far would be sufficient? Yeah, it's not, right? But forget about the cards. What if you had a more complex component such as a tree view, which has hierarchical display of information, or a list box, or a combo box, or a menu, or a modal which pops up, or a horizontal oriented component such as tabs. Now for each of these components, you need to go look up your ARIA guidelines and figure out what semantic elements to use, what are the rules to be followed, and so much more, right? So imagine you need to repeat all the steps that you did in the first segment for each of these components. So that's definitely boring, right? For me, honestly, that's boring. And it's not something we really enjoy doing, right? So this is why we have come to this particular section. So the problem here is not about that specific component. It's not that a tree is complicated or a combo box has more complexity involved, and so it makes it more difficult to make it accessible. The problem here is actually the process that we follow. We have all been so tuned to thinking in terms of components, right? Whenever you're given a web page to develop or an app to develop, the first thing we do is we break it down into smaller components, and we start thinking only from the perspective of that component, its functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and so on. But what we need to do is we need to go one step lower at an even more foundational level and think in terms of the interactions and behaviors you see on the UI. So what I mean is, at the very, very basic level, what do you do when you have a UI? You just interact with it, right? You click, you scroll, and all of that. And when you interact, what do you see? You see different behaviors on the UI. And through those behaviors, you see the UI changing or transitioning through different states. So we are going to now look at an approach where we are only going to implement or revolve our implementation around these interactions and behaviors, and not any specific component, okay? So to do this, we'll be talking to you today about two topics. The first one being something called as collections, okay? So think about it. What is a list or a tree or a menu or a grid that I told you about? It's just a collection of items, right? Nothing fancy, just a group of items, that's it. And what do you do with these group of items? You interact with them, of course. And what kind of interactions you do? You can navigate through it using your keyboard. You can select something, you can expand it, you can collapse it. If you have a long list of items, you can virtualize them and scroll through them and so much more, right? So they're basic interactions that we all know, isn't it? But the crucial question here is, we all know to develop all of this, right? There isn't anything very difficult about it. You can easily write an implementation. But what makes this interaction truly complete? It's not that if you only use your mouse or your touchpad, you should be able to complete these interactions, right? You should be able to perform these interactions with every input method, such as a screen reader or a keyboard. So this is exactly what we're going to see in this topic. So when we were exploring about the different methods or approaches that the industry leaders use to scale accessibility, what really impressed us was an approach that is followed by certain popular libraries such as React, Aria, and AriaKit, where they use certain frameworks, one of which is the collections. So basically what this is when you have any composite component, that is a component which manages a list of items, like the ones that I just gave you examples of. They use a framework called as, of course, collections to build it. And when you do this, you inherently get a lot of accessibility built in the component. Yes, please. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That is also, you can call it, it would either use a menu pattern or a combo box pattern. But yeah, that is also a composite. And it's good you pointed this out. We have an exercise on this as well. So for all these kinds of composites, be it a filter, a menu, a combo box, a grid, right? We are going to see how we can use this collection framework to build it and see how accessibility is powered in it out of the box. So we are going to learn this through an exercise with 5 steps. So I would like you to go back to the playground that we were on. But before that, are you all with me so far? Okay. I hope I haven't zoomed in too much. Let me go back to the landing page. Okay. So you can go to exercise 2, which says tree list with keyboard navigation. And please open the practice link. So you will be seeing a blank playground here. And I have pasted the links of 2 files at the top. So I want you to open both these files, the tree list and the tree component, in your editors adjacent to each other. So we'll be using these 2 files to do this exercise. Yeah, you can just copy this path and paste it in your File Explorer search. You'll be able to open it. Just let me know once you have both these files open side by side in your editor, like this. The tree list and the tree. Everyone? This side as well? At the back, has everyone opened these 2 files? So can I proceed? Okay. Fine. So we'll start with the tree list, okay? So to understand how to use a collection framework to build any list of items, we are going to take the example of a basic tree. So you know what is a tree? It has a list of data. It could have sublists that are nested with indentations, right? So I have a component called as a tree. So I'm just calling a tree component. We'll see how to build it, okay? Inside, I've passed certain compound components. So basically, this uses the React compound pattern, which you all might have been familiar with. So we just have a section, and then we have a set of items that we render inside it. Then I have another section called as price ranges, and I'm then displaying a list of prices under the price range section. I have a third section called as availability, and then I have an item called India in it, but now India has another nested item called as Maharashtra, which has another nested item called as Mumbai. Okay, so is this structure clear to you? I think it's self-explanatory. So when I call a component like this, what I would actually expect is, I'll just show you what the afterward would look like, so you know what you're going to build. I expect to see a structure like this, where as you saw, we have the category section, a list of items, availability, price ranges, and like you saw in availability, we had India, Maharashtra, and Mumbai nested inside. Okay, so we are going to build this kind of a tree. So now, can you tell me, normally when you call a tree like this, and then you render a section, an item, what actually happens the moment you call a component like a section or an item like this? It straight away, it's responsible to render some JSX, right? So when you call it section, it will display the value for the JSX, for that component called, say, categories. In that, if I have an item called as hearing assistance, this is supposed to render this particular JSX, isn't it? This is the normal way how we do React development. But now with collections, we're going to see something different. So come to this tree.jsx file, okay? Are you all on this file? Yeah. So here you see, I've not really called any JSX yet, right? And we are not going to do that as well. So what we will do, what is actually happening here is, when you have such components, these basic core entities called a section or an item, which form the individual items or units of a collection, it's not going to render any JSX. It's going to return null. Right? Then how do you see something on the UI? So what these components are, behind the scenes, it is modeled or implemented as a configuration object. So it's basically just an object which is going to extract out metadata about that particular item. So when I say metadata, what do I mean? When you take a section, it has a key, which is a unique identifier for it, right? It has a title, which you're going to display over here. It could have a class name or a style or any other custom attributes. So that is some more information about it. It could have children under it, right? So these are all the different kinds of information about each item you display in a list. So this section or item is going to have a setup behind the scenes, which will help with extracting out all this information. But what do we do with it next? We are going to convert all that information into a node. So let's see that by coding along. So if you come to the tree.jsx, in the tree code, we are not going to display JSX straight away. We'll first call a hook called as the use collection state hook, which is responsible for doing this metadata creation and node creation that I just told you. So this is a hook which is available from the collection framework. And for the purpose of this workshop, I have a very minimal implementation to just demonstrate the concept to you. So to this hook, what are the props that we pass? I'll just be passing all of the children, because unless I give it these children components that I pass to tree, how is it going to extract the data, right? So I have all the children here in tree. So I give it all the children. Since it's a tree, I can give it an optional indent size in case I want to specify or control by what unit the indentation should happen for each level. And a third important property you'll have to pass to this hook is a pattern prop. So like I told you, we are doing collections, right? Again, the same word. You can have a menu, a tree, a combo box. So, and each of these components will have different kind of ARIA attributes associated with it, right? A tree would take a role tree and tree item. A menu would have menu item. And I don't want you to know now go and read all of that and implement it. So I just pass a pattern prop telling it what the pattern is. So since it's a tree component, we have by default given it the value of a tree. You can also pass it manually. Okay, so now the pattern tree is gone to this hook. Now additionally, we have some aria label and aria labeled by, which you can pass if you like, since these aria labels are something which depends on your language, on localization as well, right? So it's something if you wish to specify, you can pass it, but it's optional. Another important property would be the orientation, but we'll come to that in the later steps. For now, you can just understand about the three main props: the children, indent size is also optional, and the pattern that you're going to do. Yeah. Yeah, what I meant is when you're building any kind of collection, right, be it a menu or a grid or a tree, the aria attributes that you need to add on the elements could differ, right? Be it the structural aria or say the selection aria. It's going to be different for different components. So I don't want you to do this manually. So I just want you to pass a pattern prop where you tell the collection what kind of a composite you want, a tree or a menu or so on. And behind the scenes, it will do this job for you. So we'll see that in more detail. Okay? Yeah. So once I call this hook, it does some magic and it gives us a result. So what if you remember, I told you that it creates nodes, right, for each item by storing metadata about it. So let's see what that looks like so that you're able to visualize things better. So for each item each component that we call the section and the item, you have a node created like this. So this is an example of one node. And you can see how every information about that particular component is stored in the form of key value pairs. So for the section, you see it has a unique key called as categories. I have a type property which says section. So it tells is this a section or is this an individual item under a section? It tells me at what level is this item. Is it a first level item, a second level item, and so on. Okay? You have lots of other metadata, which we'll not go into detail now. Come to the child nodes. Sorry. Now in the child nodes, do you see? I have similarly, I have the key. I have a type item. It tells me what rendered value it's going to display, like hearing assistance. And there's this field called as aria props, right? And you see automatically it computes the aria props that you need for each item. Like it says role tree item, the initial tab index should be 0, and this item is at aria level 1. So it automatically computed that in this tree list, the first item hearing assistance is of type item and it is at the first level, right? And it's going to take the aria level, the role tree item. So you didn't have to go and read accessibility rules for all this. You just told it what pattern you want. So similar to this, nodes are created for every compound component that you call. That is for every section and item. So you get an array of such nodes, okay? And that is stored in a property called as collection. So far, are you good? Are you all with me? Or any confusions with this? I know it could get a little overwhelming, but you can raise your queries if you want. Yeah, so a form is not considered as a composite component because a form is basically made by using different atomic components or molecular components. So it has an input box, it has a button, it could have a drop down or a menu, right? So form is not a composite component. It's not one whole. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So the result of this hook doesn't just have a set of nodes. So the state that you get from the hook, it doesn't just have a hierarchical list of nodes with metadata. It also gives us the same set of items, but in a flattened structure now. That is with no nesting, but everything at a single level. So why we do this is when you need to do keyboard navigation, right? You need to grab a particular element and focus it, right? So it becomes easier if you have a flattened structure. So this information is also returned to us by this collection hook. We also get certain core keyboard navigation methods. So let's say you are navigating through a list, right? How many of you all have implemented the keyboard navigation in your applications? Just basic navigation going up and down. So you know it's not something very interesting, right? It goes here and there and you need to manage the tab indexes and so much. So imagine you have all these helpers given to you, where if you know what is the current item, you can easily call one of these methods to get the previous item, the next item, or the first item or the last item, right? So all that you need to do is just register a keyboard on key down handler and use these. So you get these helpers as well. And the last thing which this hook also gives you is, similar to whatever in metadata and ARIA props you had for each collection item, you might also need to add a certain role or ARIA attribute at the tree level, right? That is at the element level. So tree is not just going to do nothing. It's also supposed to return some element, right? A wrapper element inside which you have every child element. So using this get collection props, it will give you the root level ARIA handling. So now we saw ARIA handling for each node, a set of methods for navigation, and ARIA handling for the root item. So far, is it clear? Okay. So with this information, what can we do next? We have a set of nodes which is enriched with a lot of accessibility enablers. So we go to the next step in your exercise. So can you go to the step 2? And you see we need to now call a keyboard navigation hook. So I simply have, I would like you to also uncomment and understand what these hooks are doing. So you see, so far we're not dealing with a tree. We're just dealing with a set of nodes, right? And we are implementing interactions. So we're going to implement this use keyboard interaction. So you all know to write keyboard navigation, right? If I'm going to make you write the logic, you're really going to get bored. So we are not going to do that. So what this hook basically does is, it will just create an on key down event handler, and it will attach an on key down event, and it will attach an event handler to it. So this event handler will make use of those navigation methods which I got from my collection hook to perform the keyboard navigation. So all that is returned as a result of this hook, and it's stored in this nav object. All right. So we have one interaction ready. So let's say in my tree, I also want to do the selection operation, right? Another interaction now. So we have again extracted that out as a separate hook. You can do it along with me. And the same way, we call this hook as well. We write necessary selection logic. We can pass a selection mode to it. We can tell it whether we want to do a single selection or a multi-selection. Okay. Here again, we tell it the pattern. Why do we tell it the pattern over here? Can anyone guess? Yes? Yeah. Yeah, you're close to it. So yeah, in the case of a tree, when we do selection, you need to use the ARIA selected attribute. But let's say you're doing it in a menu, you need to use the ARIA checked attribute. So I'm not going to let you do this, right? Again, you just say pattern tree, choose the kind of selection you want to do. If it's a control selection, you give your on change handler. It will neatly write all the logic for you and return you necessary handlers in the selection result. So we had the nodes, we have done the implementation for 2 interactions. So we'll stop here, we'll not go further. Now we'll start the rendering part, okay? But before I render, do you think everything is ready to render? So if you notice in the keyboard navigation, we would have received an on key down handler, right? Which we need to attach on an item. Now in selection as well, you would have received a keyboard on key down handler because every element needs to listen to the space key press or the enter key press, right? So now if I'm going to just simply spread all these keyboard handlers one on top of the other on an element, it's going to override each other, right? There's going to be conflicts. So for that, we have our 4th step where we just merge all these props neatly. So merge props is a utility it's a standard utility which you have available from many libraries. So you don't have to worry about writing it. You can make use of it. And whatever props you pass to it, it will neatly merge it and ensure they are all spread and implemented on each element. All right? So we call them merge props, and whatever results we've got from a hook so far, we pass all of that to this particular utility, and we get a list of props. Now, do you see I call it as wrapper props? Why am I calling it as wrapper props? This exercise of merging doesn't have to be done only for each item in the tree, right? It has to also be done for the wrapper element of the tree. So in this tree list, if you see, we also have a tree which wraps all of the items. So I'll have to merge some props for the wrapper element. I'll also have to merge some props for each item in the tree. Okay? So that is what this merge props does first for the wrapper. So using my state and nav, state is the result of the first hook and nav is the result of the second hook. So it calls to methods called as the get collection props, which is basically the handlers and everything for your root element, and it merges it and gives it in the wrapper props. Now we are ready to render our GSX finally. Okay. So now I call something as a wrapper element. Instead of wrapper element, you can straight away render a UL like this. I've just used a wrapper element in case you want to have a custom way of defining what element to use. So wrapper element is accepted as a prop here, a prop called as, where I say I want to use a UL tag. To keep it simple, you can also directly render an element. And I simply spread all of my wrapper props on my wrapper element. So that is done. My on key down handler, my role, tree, all of this will get spread on the wrapper element once we do this. But now we have to render the children, right? The section and the children. So we have the nodes generated, right? From our use collection state call. So we simply call that collection nodes and we map over it and we render each item. So this is where we are rendering the JSX for each item. So this JSX for each item, which let's say it's going to be an LI element, this is rendered from an item renderer. I'll not go into that code because I think you understand what it's going to do. So this will have an item, an LI displayed, rendered. In case it's a nested list, it would have another UL with LIs inside it. Okay. So similarly, like we did the merging, we just pass the nav, that's the result of the keyboard hook, the result of the selection hook, and all of our collection nodes, so that it can do the merging and spread it on each element. All right. So far we did 5 steps. Are you able to get a high level idea of the flow? I know it could get a little heavy, but are you following the concept at least? We can quickly summarize these 5 steps so before we see the output. Okay. So we first called our component. Okay. Each component was behind the scenes used to generate a set of nodes with ARIA metadata. We then developed interactions separately, keyboard interactions, selection interactions. We got the necessary props, spread them on each element, and then we rendered the JSX. Okay. So now let's go and see what the result looks like. So you see, now I don't have a blank canvas anymore. I have the same tree that we were supposed to have. Yeah. This is my playground page. So I don't have a blank page. I have the tree that we were supposed to have implemented. So, but let's test it now, right? It's not enough if I just show you something like this. I need to test it. So I have a set of checkpoints here, okay? So we'll go through them one by one. So first thing is no manual spreading, tree handles everything. So did we do any manual prop spreading so far? No, right? We didn't set any ARIA level or role or anything, okay? But we have to verify that. So let's go to the second step. Now let's first verify if the ARIA level props are set. Now since this is a tree, as per the ARIA guidelines, every level or every item in a tree should have an ARIA level, saying whether it's a level 1 item or a level 2 or a level 3. Now you need to do some computation for that, definitely, right? But we didn't do it. So let's go and see what this looks like. So I'm going to inspect the India item over here. I hope is it visible or should I zoom in? Let me zoom in. Okay, is this good for everyone? Okay. So you see the LI item for India here. It automatically has the ARIA level 1. Okay, fine, cool. What about Maharashtra? Do you see it has ARIA level 2 here? What about Pune? Can we check Pune or Mumbai? It has ARIA level 3. So this was automatically computed for you and spread, right? We didn't do anything. We didn't have to even go and read whether tree needs an ARIA level or not, right? It's already done for you. So the first checkpoint is done. What about the roles? If you look at the container UL that I told you, the UL which wraps the whole tree, it has the role tree assigned to it. And if you see each LI inside it, it has the role tree item added, right? We didn't do this again. So that is also done. The ARIA expanded true now, okay. Now this is another ARIA attribute that you need to add for tree, okay. So any item which that is expanded and has children, you need to add the ARIA expanded true to it. So you see for this particular India item, it has ARIA expanded true because India's children are expanded. Whereas if you check, if you look at Karnataka, it says ARIA expanded false. Okay, false is not there because it's not expanded. You don't have true, right? So we already saw so many things which were supposed to be taken care of in a tree, but we didn't do it. Our collection did it for us automatically by just telling it what pattern we need. So that's also done. Okay, now let's check if selection works, right? Because you remember we called a selection hook as well, no? So selection is also working, that's great. But how will a screen reader know that it's selected? So there is this ARIA selected attribute that I told you about. So let's check if that is also done. So yes, see, you see this particular item is selected and it has ARIA selected true. You can see the previous items have ARIA selected false. So again, yet another attribute which was added automatically. Arrow key navigation, can we test that? Yes, it works correctly. And if you remember, I missed telling you this. When we call the keyboard navigation hook, we also passed a property called as loop true to it, which basically means it will loop. When you go to the last element, it will loop to the first element. If you choose false, this will not happen. It will be a one-way navigation. And orientation also I missed. I'm sorry about that. It's used to tell the hook whether you're supposed to you're supposed to do a up, down arrow key, that is vertical navigation. You're supposed to use the right, left and right arrow key navigation. So based on that, it will make your keyboard handling event listeners. So we are done with most of the checklists, points in the checklist, right? But there's one more last item called as the custom class name and style props merged. So anyone knows what this last checkpoint means? Did any of you pay attention while we were going through the tree list component? That is when we were calling the tree component in the tree list file. So there was this item, Mumbai, where I didn't just render item Mumbai, I also passed it the style prop, right? And I gave it a color of red. But we didn't really talk about style or anything in tree, right? But then we called a merge props utility. So merge props was not just for merging the keyboard handlers, but for all the props that you supply to it, including custom properties that the consumer might pass, like a class name or a style. So that is the reason why you see Mumbai in red here. So this is also handled for you. And for Pune, we had passed a green color styling through a class over here. Yeah, a class name featured location was added for Pune, and that is also applied correctly. So all of these checkpoints are correct. But I need to test it, right? It's not sufficient if I just call the ARIA selected and set the ARIA levels. So let me just quickly run the screen reader. I just want you to see what the screen reader announcements are. Okay, I am on this page. Let me turn it on. Okay, we are now on this page, okay. I'm using the arrow keys, I'm not using anything else. So you see, as I navigate through it, it tells me what item I'm on. Now can you see, when I'm on the first item, it says hearing assistant selected, which means it identified our ARIA selected attribute and it's announcing it as selected. If I go to say Maharashtra and I select it, okay, now I go back to Maharashtra, you say it's level, oh no. Yeah, it says Maharashtra expanded selected, right? So it read the ARIA expanded as well as the ARIA selected. So all our ARIA attributes are also working fine. Keyboard navigation works fine. Screen reader is also working fine. So what do you think about this exercise? We had 5 main steps. We didn't really go into the context of a tree. It was more of a declarative approach to just tell the collection, I want to develop a tree. And it developed it for us in an accessible manner. Are you all with me? Do you all feel the difference between the first exercise where we had to do the ARIA handling for every aspect versus this case, right? Yeah. So this is the reason why using such frameworks called as a collection, in the case of composites, helps you to bake in accessibility right from the beginning. It also helps in developer experience because you don't expect every new developer to go and read the ARIA guidelines and follow the right practices, right? They just need to learn about how the collection framework works, and they can build their own components that are accessible from day one. So if you want to know more about how this framework works behind the scene, you can take a look at our code. It will offer you a basic implementation of collections, and you can refer to the libraries that I mentioned about on a reference page. Okay. So with this, we finished our first topic under this segment. Now we go to the second topic, all right? So are you all ready for the second topic? Or are you confused or lost? Anyone else? No, what we do further will be simpler, but are you getting the idea? The main intent of this is to tell you how we architected the component, which differs from our regular way of writing React components. So if you get the architectural concept, you don't have to worry about learning how to write this collection because you have libraries for it. You just need to understand the concept and the value of it so that you can use it in your applications. Okay, let's go to the next topic now, all right? So we saw this tree, right? Now what if I don't want to display a tree just like this, but now I want to pop this up as a filter menu, which was exactly the case that one of the participants spoke about. So the same categories, price ranges, etc., but now it's in a pop-up one layer above your document, okay? Or the card that you developed in the first exercise, now on clicking it, I want it to pop up again as a modal. That is another layer on top. Do you see some difference between the two cases? This modal as well as this filter menu pop-up. Could you all like? Exactly, yeah, you use the right word. So both of these components, if you see, they overlay another layer of information above the regular document flow. So now we are moving from our collection pattern to a very different pattern or a different kind of a behavior. But let's try to understand what are the similarities and the differences so that we can then go into seeing how we can architect this kind of a framework, okay? So in the case of this kind of a pop-up where I've composed a menu inside, okay? If I automatically have the keyboard navigation, okay? But let's say I want to now come out of this. I'm using my arrow keys. Now I want to resume navigating using my keyboard on the rest of the page. So I can just press the tab key and I come back outside, right? And I can tap to rest of the elements. Whereas in the case of this modal, if you see, pressing tab should not bring me outside, right? Because this is not a vertical or a horizontal list where I use arrow keys. Whereas pressing tab should trap my focus inside and I should be able to focus every item in the modal. But then how do I come out? Only if I press the escape key. So here there's a difference. Although they both are portals or overlays, there's this difference over here. Furthermore, in the case of the pop-up, if you look at the trigger, this trigger should give us information about what it does or what it controls. So it basically controls the opening and closing of a pop-up, right? So it should tell us that it has a pop-up, ARIA has pop-up, and what pop-up? That is a menu. It should tell us whether it's expanded or collapsed. So here you can see it's expanded, so it says expanded true. And then another prop it would say is ARIA controls, that is which pop-up is it controlling. So it has a value here which is the ID of the component inside this. So this menu component has an ID called as filter menu overlay, which is the value we assign to the ARIA controls. So in such a component you need to add all of this ARIA handling as well, okay? But in the case of a modal, you see this difference. It takes the role of a dialog and it has the ARIA modal true set on it, okay? Just observe, we'll do all this one by one, okay? So this will help the screen reader announce that this dialog that you've opened is a dialog and it's a modal, okay? But what about the trigger for this? Do you think we should specify those ARIA controls, ARIA has pop-up and all for the trigger of a modal? Does anyone have any idea? Like just make a wild guess. So in the case of the pop-up, I showed you, right, that the trigger had certain ARIA attributes where it tells you what kind of a pop-up it's going to control, like the ARIA has pop-up, the ARIA controls and all of that. Do you think we need to do a similar handling even for a modal's trigger as well? No, for the case of a modal, we don't do it. It's just a normal trigger, because for the case of a modal pattern, if you again read our ARIA guidelines, they treat modal as a separate window of information above your document. So it's not treated as controlling something. So you see, you need to learn so many new patterns and guidelines, right, if you jump into this world of accessibility. So do you want to really do this? Definitely not. It's very boring. Okay. So for this, we are again going to come with a framework which will help us to get this behavior out of the box. Okay. So I'll quickly take you through the architecture for overlays, where we create a base overlay with the common behavior that we saw between the dialogue and the pop-up, and then how we can extend it to have specific overlays depending on the use case. Okay. So what we'll do here is, you can create a React component as a base overlay. Okay, a normal React component which returns some JSX. But what was a common behavior that we saw between the pop-up and the menu? You saw both of them need to close when we press the escape key. So you can write that logic in a hook and call it in this component. Okay. When we click outside also, it needs to close and the focus should be restored back to the trigger, right, in both cases. So you write that also in a hook and you compose that. And then, of course, when you close the portal or the overlay, the focus should be back on the trigger so that you can press enter again. So you can write that logic also again in another React hook. So now you have composed 3 different behaviors in this base component. Okay. But who will manage the visibility of the overlay, the opening, closing? You need functions, basic functions for this, right? So for this, we can create a separate hook called as a use base overlay, which has a visibility state, and it has certain methods like the open, close, and toggle to be able to toggle the visibility. Okay. Now, why we are doing this and how we'll use it in the code is something that we'll see. But now I'm not going to use the base. I need specific use cases, right? So for the case of a pop-up, okay, I can have another component called as a pop-up overlay. So this will simply call my base overlay so that I get whatever base behavior I have. And additionally, I can configure whether it should have the focus trap behavior or not. So you saw in the case of a dialogue, we need it. But in our pop-up, we don't need it, right? But have you worked with popover components, which has a similar pop-up and focus is trapped inside, right? So in a pop-up as well, you could have focus trap. So you can optionally have focus trap logic written separately with normal JS, and you can call this as well in this React component. And similarly, you can have a hook for it now, which handles certain ARIA states for you. So I showed you, right, for the pop-up, the trigger would take ARIA, certain ARIA attributes like the has, pop-up, and controls. So I'm going to manage all of those ARIA attributes or ARIA states in the separate hook. So the ARIA handling is separate from your rendering part. Now the last component that we have extended from the base, which is for the dialogue kind of an overlay, where you again just call the base. But now optionally, I also want to do something else. So did you notice this, that when I open this dialogue, it was not just that it opens as a modal, right? I have a backdrop here. And when I try to interact, I should not be able to interact with the background information. So we need to do something for that. And it's not just my interactions. Even when I run a screen reader, the screen reader should not be able to, all of the information behind the modal that is on the document should be hidden, right? So for this, you need to actually set the attribute inert on your page, on your main page. So this is also something you need to do manually, right? At the root level of your page, yeah. So you will have an app root, right? Yeah, so on that app root div, you can set the element, the attribute inert, okay? But again, this is something you have to do, right? And you have to go and read it to know that you have to do it, all right? Not only that, I have a backdrop here. Do you see it? A transparent layer. And the screen reader is not supposed to read this for me because the person who's blind will get confused. He's only supposed to read the information in the modal. So again, I need to set an ARIA hidden true for this particular backdrop as well. So again, one more aspect you need to consider in the case of an overlay. So for this dialog overlay component, we'll call the base overlay once again, but we'll also add additional behavior for firstly trapping the focus that we saw, and to use this inert, to have this inert logic applied. So this, you can create a hook called use inert, which will target your root element and apply the inert attribute on it. So I don't want you to do all that. I just want you to understand at the architectural level how we are composing our or breaking down our overlay into smaller parts. Okay. So use autofocus is something optional. Like when you open an overlay, you might want to have the first interactive element focused automatically. But this is based on use case. So you can have it as an optional behavior written in a separate hook again with normal JavaScript. Okay. Okay. So now, yeah, for the dialogue, again, we have a separate hook for the ARIA state. So you saw, right, in the case of a dialogue or a modal, we had the role dialogue and the ARIA modal attribute written for the screen reader to understand what it is. So again, this is handled by this hook so that you can automatically spread it on your elements. Okay. So now you saw base, a pop-up, and a dialogue and respective hooks, right? 3 layers. So we'll see how we can use this to complete this particular filter menu pop-up. Okay. So we already built a tree, right? So you don't have to do this again. I've already made a menu list for you following the same approach, but now using a menu pattern. Okay. You only have to go and compose this inside of a pop-up overlay using these 2 components and hooks. So can you quickly go to exercise number 3? Exercise number 3 that says filter menu accessibility. You can open the playground. And when you open the playground, you'll be able to see the file in which you need to perform this exercise. So you can copy paste this path. So it's a simpler exercise. You just have 3 steps. If you have got a good idea about this architecture, it'll be very easy to implement it. So let me also open the filter menu part. Close this. Okay. All of y'all are on this file? Okay, fine. So I'll just explain you what this page is about. So on your playground, you see I have a previous button. I've just added it to test our focus logic and all. Then I have a filter button. This button is supposed to control this menu here. But like I told you, I developed it just like a tree by passing the menu pattern. So it's just displayed as it is, not in a pop-up. Okay. So this should now be composed inside a pop-up overlay. And then after that, I have a next button, which is just part of rest of the page. Now we'll see how we wrap this list into a menu pop-up, and it's toggled by this button. Okay, is it clear about what we are going to do? Okay. So yeah, if you come to the file, you have a similar structure. You can see I have one button, which is basically this previous button rendered. I then have a filter trigger button, which is this button. I've then called the menu list, which is here, and then a next button on the page, another button. Okay. So scroll up to the step 1. You can look for this pencil icon. So the step 1 says you need to use this use pop-up hook. So first what we are going to do is we are going to get all our ARIA states. So if you remember, we are going to use, I'll keep my code next to the PPT. We are going to use this second component or the second layer, right? Because we are doing a pop-up. So I'm first going to call this use pop-up hook to get all my ARIA states for the trigger. Okay. So let's uncomment this. So we've called the use pop-up. So here what do I do basically? I just pass an ID for my body, that is the overlay. I pass an ID for the trigger, okay, so that it can be linked using the ARIA controls attribute. Now there was an ARIA has pop-up attribute, right, on the control, that is on the trigger. And I need to tell it what pop-up is it. Is it a menu or a list box? So I just can pass a has pop-up field to this hook. And we have a set of constants exposed for the values that the has pop-up can take. So you can choose the menu constant from the list of has pop-up values. So again, this is something which is coming from our framework itself. Okay, you just check what are the constants available and pass it. You don't have to go and read about it. So now we've got all these pop-up related ARIA handling states ready. Okay, now what shall we do next? Shall we spread it on the trigger? Right, once we have got what we need for the trigger, we need to spread it on the trigger. So you scroll down to the filter trigger, which is your step 2. You can again look for step 2 with the pencil icon. You can see I've spread 2 props on this particular component. So what I've done, I've from the result of this hook pop-up controls, I've extracted a trigger property. So trigger has certain other handling as well for the trigger, like the a certain ref and all of that, which is not related to accessibility, but it's needed for the functioning. So I've not covered that as part of the explanation because I just want you to understand the accessibility perspective here. Okay, so you just attach the trigger properties to the trigger field, and you also pass the toggle method to the on click. Right? You remember we spoke about this visibility handling, right, which is done in the base overlay, and then it's made available through these open close toggle methods. So now see, I'm calling pop-up overlay, but I still have the base behavior available in my use pop-up because it simply extended the base. Okay, so you attach these toggle methods to it so that I can toggle the pop-up with click plus with my keys. Okay. Now going down, what do we do last? I have the menu list. Now I need to wrap this in the pop-up, right? We finished the hook part to handle the ARIA attributes for the trigger. But I need to call the pop-up overlay to wrap my content in it. Sorry. So can we do that in the third list? Go to the third list with the pencil icon. Call this pop-up component. Don't forget to call the closing tag as well. So again, a set of self-explanatory props over here. You can see we pass a style for the pop-up overlay if you want to say what width it should take. If you want to trap focus, you can say trap focus false, but in our case, we're not going to trap focus because when I press tab, I need to come out of it, right? So focus is not trapped. So again, very declaratively, you say trap focus false. You can say that you want to place this pop-up at the bottom start from the trigger, aligned to the bottom start of the trigger. Here I'm mapping I'm passing to it the close method. Here we pass the toggle method, right? To pop up, we pass the close method. Why close specifically and not toggle? Because once the pop-up is open, if I click outside, I need to be able to close it, right? So I need to give it the close method so that it can do that handling for us. So yeah, so these were the main props that we pass. And you see, all of this comes from our pop-up, right? We didn't do anything specific. We just need to understand what the pop-up does and do the correct mapping. So with this, can we go and see what our output looks like? So you see, the list is no longer just spread. It's now hidden, right? You can't see it. So let me use my keyboard. Yeah, now that we've composed it in a pop-up, right? If you see, if you navigate to this filter button, you can see on the screen, and I open it, it's going to loop through, okay? I'm using my arrow keys now, all right? And I developed it similar to the tree. But now if I press tab, it's not going to go to the next item in the list. It's going to come out of the menu, and it's going to help me to navigate to the next items on the page. Because I passed the trap focus false prop to the where is that? Yeah, to the pop-up overlay. So it's not going to trap focus inside. So this pop-up is going to help you to come out of your composite component and resume navigation on rest of the page. Okay. Let's check the rest of the checkpoints. Do we have all those ARIA props? Yes. On the button, you see I have the ARIA has pop-up. And it says it has a pop-up of a menu. it controls a menu overlay. So you have the ID of the overlay over here set automatically. Currently, the pop-up is closed, so it's ARIA expanded false, but if you open it, it has ARIA expanded true. Okay. Now if I hit escape key, I'm able to close it. If I press outside, I'm able to close it, and focus is restored back to the trigger no matter how I close it. So this was some handling which we saw at the base overlay, right? But we have it now in our pop-up as well. So what is the next checkpoint? Okay, the roles. So the roles are added automatically, but I can show you quickly. We've used the collection behind the framework for the menu list inside. So you can see the role menus added for each item. And for each list item inside, we have the role, wait, this is the group, right? Yeah, you see the menu item checkbox. So just like the pattern tree, we have a pattern menu checkbox as well, okay? So that was used in the menu list implementation, which I didn't show you. And automatically the roles are applied, okay? You can also see instead of ARIA selected, now ARIA checked is added. So this is again, they are very small intricate details. You can't use ARIA selected. If I use ARIA selected with the menu item, the screen reader won't announce it. So you need to use ARIA checked and the role menu item checkbox, not even role menu item. So do you want to again go and memorize all these rules? Definitely not, right? So all of this is powered by the collection framework, and your pop-up comes from the pop-up framework. Pop-up behavior comes from the pop-up framework. So yeah, we saw the roles. Okay, there is this presentational wrapper. If you see above this particular menu, can you see I've inspected the menu now? It has this role menu, right? But above there's another div inside it. So this div is just to control the positioning, to place this exactly below this trigger. So I've just added in the checklist so that you're not confused on why we have this extra div, okay? We tested the up and down arrow keys. We tested the escape, tab, shift, focus is restored to trigger. We've tested everything, okay? Yeah. So now I'm going to just very quickly call the screen reader, but okay, you see I'm on previous button. Filter button says, it says menu pop-up collapsed. So now the person using the component knows this button has a pop-up with it that is going to open. So when I open it, I can navigate through it. I selected an item. Now let me come back to the selected item. You see visual assistance ticked. Let me come back there, right? So I used an ARIA checked there. So that's why it's telling me visual assistance is ticked. It doesn't say selected here because it's screen reader's way of differentiating between an ARIA selected and an ARIA checked. But you anyways know that it's selected, right? So the screen reader is also able to understand all of our ARIA attributes. So how do you feel after this exercise? Was it too much? Yeah, I mainly want you to understand it at the architecture or the conceptual level rather than the implementation. Because implementation is something which today in the world of AI, if you know what to do, you can get the code written, right? So I mainly want you to understand how we did the collection architecture, how we composed our overlay architecture, so that you can get the code written automatically, either yourself or using AI tools or anything. So we are almost nearing the end, okay? I'll just quickly go to this page. Just give me 3 to 4 minutes more. Yeah? Yeah, I'll just explain the difference, yes. So we have an exercise 4 here, okay? So when I was explaining you the overlay framework, if you remember, I told you about the pop-up and I told you about the dialog overlay, right? So an implementation or let's say you have an implementation where you need to render a modal using dialog overlay. You'll do the same 3 steps that you did in the case of a pop-up. You'll call, instead of pop-up, you'll call the dialog overlay. Instead of the use pop-up, you'll call the use dialog. And spreading of props on the trigger and on the portal that is on your body content is going to be the same. The steps will be the same. You just change the name of the component or the hook, okay? So I've left it as a take-home exercise for you so that you practice and you see if you really understood this. But I'll just quickly open the solved part of it and show you the difference. So let me close whatever is not needed so that we're not confused. I'll just open the add to cart solution. I'll just give you an overview of it, okay, so that when you go through it later on, you're not confused. Okay. So you see step 1, we call the use dialog instead of use pop-up. We pass the same IDs to it. We got a result. Now we spread the result on the trigger button, just like we did for the pop-up, okay. We mapped the open method here, not toggle. Why? Because once you open a modal, the background is inert, right? It's hidden from us. So you can't close it. You need to press escape, you need to click outside. So the button cannot be accessed to close it. So we can directly give it the open method. And then on the dialog overlay, we just spread the dialog state again for the role, dialog, ARIA modal and everything. That's it. So now let's quickly go here. And I'm going to just run the screen reader straight away. Okay. So it says there's an add to cart button. Note here, it is a modal, a dialog pattern. So no ARIA controls, no ARIA has pop-up, nothing should be present on the trigger. Okay. Now when I open it, do you see it announces the title Braille keyboard dialog. So now it tells the user that this is a dialog. So the person who's blind, who's listening to this knows that I have a dialog, that which is another layer of information on top. And how was it able to announce that it is a dialog? Let's just very, very quickly see. You can see on my container of the modal, I have the role dialog and ARIA modal automatically added through the dialog framework. You can use the escape key, it will close and restore focus to the trigger. You use tab key, focus is trapped inside now. It doesn't come out in the case, like in the case of the pop-up. So we are good. Right? So yeah, can we quickly now conclude this session? I know it was heavy, but I'm assuming you understood something? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You can't say every organization. It depends on how the MUI components are developed, because what I showed you was how to incorporate this architecture at the component level, right? At the foundation of the component. So if you have a ready-made component, you need to see if they have accessibility built in already. So this is mainly an approach for people who are developing things from scratch. So you said every organization, but actually it's not every organization. Yeah, there are many organizations, but there are many more organizations that develop things from scratch, right? You have a lot of companies building their own design systems, right? So in that case, definitely if you use a framework like this, you get accessibility from your foundation from day one. So if you use a library, it depends on the library. They must have handled accessibility already, okay? So let's quickly wrap up, okay? Just take 2 minutes. So do you remember the title of the segment, which I told you I'll revisit at the end? Who remembers the title of the second section? Yeah. Yeah, building blocks and not band-aids, right? So did you feel that we incorporated accessibility or enabled accessibility right from the foundation of building the component? And we didn't add accessibility band-aids after implementing it by changing a semantic tag or adding ARIA attributes, right? We didn't really know what is the accessibility that we need to add for this. We just very declaratively used certain frameworks and got accessibility out of the box. So that was the intent of me labeling this section as building blocks and not band-aids. Did you also observe that we thought in terms of behaviors and interactions? We didn't speak in, do any implementation in the context of a menu or a tree or a modal, right? We were thinking about an overlay behavior or a collection behavior or a keyboard interaction or selection interaction. We wrote implementation for interactions and behaviors specifically. We composed them to form specific contexts, right? And this automatically gives you accessibility out of the box. It's not a separate topic anymore if you change your way of thinking. So yeah, this was an architectural driven approach for accessibility, which means you get accessibility inherently from the ground up. And yeah, there are a lot of performance gains, which you obviously know if you have, say, a virtualized list and people have to write keyboard navigation for it. Each dev is going to write their own logic, right? So if you have a unified interface, like a collection, which is going to handle all this for you, definitely it's going to be more optimized and performant, all right? So with that, I come to an end of this session, and I'll hand it over to Piyush to wrap up the last section of this workshop. Thank you so much, and I hope you learned something from this part. Thank you. Fine.
Okay, so thank you, Shambhavi, for explaining us accessibility at component level. So I hope most of you have learned something new today. So, is it audible, everyone? Okay. So, there was one more exercise which we had planned to do. I think we are running out of time. I'll just explain you the difference. But let me explain you the crux of this exercise. So, do you think managing accessibility at component level would solve all the cases? How many of you think like that? Anyone? Okay, so I think I'm glad to see there's an audience who know about accessibilities. Okay, so yes, so this will definitely not solve all the cases, but it will help us out to resolve maximum number of cases by on its own. So for that also, just ending to this complete workshop, we had added one more exercise where we were trying to tell you that you have to see accessibility as a holistic view as well. So apart from the component level, you must have to solve some cases at the page level itself. So I'll just simply explain you that exercise because we don't have time for doing hands-on again. So again, we have the fifth exercise called page level cases. So in the page level cases, if I go to our home page, and this is the page level case part, and in this you can see let us assume that components over here are accessible, right? But this will still at the page level the things are not completely accessible. So we have just we have just focused the three most important cases which people used to miss. You can refer them as well, and also if you find some more cases, you can work on that as well. So the first case we would like to highlight is now we handle tabbing and up down arrow keys, but people used to forget the skip links. So what happens is sometimes we have more number of links or more number of tabbable objects. So if a person who is trying to tab across this page, the page it becomes cumbersome for him to navigate to the particular section. So it's always a good practice to add the skip link across that pages. We'll add the skip links for you as well. We'll show them at the final solution. Then the second thing which we can do is the heading hierarchies. So now we are using semantic tags, but the correct order of the semantic tags is also important. Whenever you are using a heading tag, it's too much. Yeah, the correct order of the semantic tags is also important, right? So as per accessibility rule, the first heading you are using should always be the H1 tag. So this was the second thing which we could have done for this page. And the last part is the live regions. Live regions is something which can be handled at the component level itself, but sometimes it has to be seen at the page level. For example, if I am adding an element to the cart, right, there should be an announcement that my cart element is updated. Okay. So all of this thing, we were planning to do it as an exercise, but I think we don't have time now. So this is done in the solve part. You can refer the fifth exercise. You can see in the solve part, you will get a skip content on adding. If I'll open the accessibility tool, it will announce that we have added the card element. And lastly, the heading structures also. Let me just show you quickly. So let me just show you quickly. So if I say add element, I'll try to add the element. So see, it's announcing the cart element is updated. Also, if I press caps lock U, you can see proper heading hierarchy is being displayed. Okay, so like you can refer the code and you can see it. So lastly, after solving all these cases, we have almost if we go to the main page, we have made the complete ecom page accessible. It would be like you would be able to navigate across this page easily and place an order directly. Like if I try to go back, add and go to cart, I'll able to check out also. So again, it was easy. I have done this with the help of keyboard itself. So this was the main crux of whole exercise. So like we'll just recap things so that we expect like if you are developing things from scratch, you would cater the accessibility from start from now onwards. So recapping everything, as we started with a component level accessibility, whenever we are designing a component, we should always create the components with semantic tags and proper keyboard navigation and proper rules of accessibilities. Then whenever we are we should think of a reusable approach or a framework so that things can be we can create a reusable package and can be used at multiple places. And the last thing was the page level accessibility. Definitely whenever we when we are done with all the things, we should always check the holistic view of the page, like whether it's accessible or not. Lastly, if you want to know more details, you can refer this reference section, and also we have added some example of reusable packages which you can refer. It will have many such cases where we have reusable accessible components available. One of the example is the React area, so you can refer that as well. And I think we are almost done. So in case you have more doubts, you can connect with us across any of the 3 days of the workshop. So we'll just share you the link. You just so you can connect with us on LinkedIn, and also like we are here 3 days. So if you have any further queries, you can connect with both of us. Okay. So thank you everyone.